The last thing Brandon Swanson's parents heard was his sharp, startled exclamation, "Oh, shht!" before the phone went dead. One moment he was walking along a quiet Minnesota road, his voice steady as he guided them to his location. The next he was gone. No trace, no answers, just an empty, desolate landscape stretching into the darkness. What happened in those final moments? What did Brandon see? For over a decade, the mystery has loomed like a ghost over the quiet farmland, leaving behind only questions, speculation, and an eerie sense that something out there still holds the truth. May 14th, 2008, was an ordinary spring evening in Minnesota. The air was cool but calm, the vast farmland stretching endlessly under a dark sky sprinkled with faint stars. In small rural towns like Marshall and Lind, life moved at a slower pace. Roads emptied early, and the silence of the countryside settled in long before midnight. For 19-year-old Brandon Swanson, it was the end of another college semester at Minnesota West Community and Technical College. He had spent the evening celebrating with friends, sharing laughter and stories, before setting off for the short drive back home. The route was familiar, a winding path through quiet farmland, dotted with the occasional farmhouse or distant glow of a town's streetlights. But somewhere along that lonely drive, something went terribly wrong. Brandon's car veered off the road, getting stuck in a ditch near the small town of Lind. Stranded but unharmed, he called his parents for help. What followed was a frustrating, hour-long conversation as he tried to guide them to his location, walking along dark back roads in search of familiar landmarks. His voice was steady, determined, until suddenly, it wasn't. Then came the last words they would ever hear from him. "Oh, shht!" The call cut off. The silence that followed was absolute. Brandon Swanson was never seen or heard from again. It was a warm spring evening on May 14th, 2008, in rural Minnesota. The moon hung high in the sky, casting a silvery glow over the fields that stretched endlessly in every direction. Brandon Swanson, a 19-year-old college student from Marshall, had just finished celebrating the end of the semester with friends. His bright future gleamed with promise. Yet fate would weave a far darker thread into his story that night. A mystery that remains unsolved to this day. Brandon had been driving back to his hometown after the gathering. The journey was familiar, the roads winding through a patchwork of farmland and narrow country lanes. At approximately 1:15 a.m., his car veered slightly off course. Whether it was an unseen ditch, loose gravel, or a lapse in concentration, Brandon's car became stuck on a dirt road near the town of Lind. Stranded, but unharmed, he did what any resourceful teenager would do. He called his parents for help. The call came through to his parents, Brian and Annette Swanson, shortly after his car became immobilized. Brandon was calm at first, frustrated more by the inconvenience than anything else. He described his location in detail, explaining that he was near Lind and confident they could find him. Despite the late hour, his parents quickly set out to retrieve him, their headlights cutting through the darkness. But when they arrived at the spot Brandon had described, there was no car, no Brandon. Nothing but the sound of the wind rustling through the grass and the quiet hum of the rural night. Confused, they called Brandon back. Brandon answered immediately, his tone edged with frustration and confusion. He insisted he was where he had said he was, but when his parents described their surroundings, it became clear something was off. Brandon, determined to resolve the situation, decided to leave his car behind and walk towards a set of distant lights he believed were from Lind. He kept his phone pressed to his ear, guiding his parents as he walked. As the minutes turned into an hour, the conversation grew more strained. Brandon's parents urged him to stay put, but he refused. He sounded confident in his ability to find his way to safety. The call continued as Brandon described his surroundings, a mix of gravel roads, grassy fields, and the occasional fence. Yet his descriptions didn't match anything his parents recognized. And then suddenly, it happened. "Oh, shht!" Brandon exclaimed, his voice sharp with alarm. The line went dead. Panic swept through Brian and Annette as they tried to reconnect with their son. Call after call went unanswered, the silence on the other end chilling them to the core. They immediately contacted authorities, who launched a search that would span days, weeks, and eventually years. But the only trace of Brandon they ever found was his abandoned car, miles from where he claimed to be. The terrain was unforgiving, vast fields interspersed with marshland, rivers, and creeks. Searchers combed through the area with dogs, helicopters, and volunteers, but no sign of Brandon was ever discovered. The Yellow Medicine River, a winding, murky waterway nearby, became a focal point of the investigation, as some speculated Brandon may have fallen in. Yet repeated dives and sweeps of the river yielded nothing. As the years passed, the mystery of Brandon Swanson's disappearance only deepened. Did he misjudge his surroundings and accidentally stumble into danger? Was he the victim of foul play, a passing stranger with sinister intentions? Or did the land itself, with its labyrinth of creeks and ditches, swallow him whole? The chilling reality is that no one knows. His parents never stopped searching, holding on to the faint hope that one day the answers would emerge from the shadows. The haunting words, "Oh shit," remain a grim echo of that fateful night, a brief, terrifying glimpse into whatever Brandon saw in his final moments. The disappearance of Brandon Swanson remains one of the most chilling unsolved mysteries in modern American history. Despite extensive searches, countless theories, and the passage of time, the question remains: what happened to him that night? One of the leading theories is that Brandon accidentally fell into the nearby Yellow Medicine River. The terrain he was walking through was a mix of farmland, dirt roads, and patches of water, with the river running through the area. If he had been navigating in the dark, he might have unknowingly stepped into the fast-moving water. However, multiple search efforts, including divers, sonar technology, and search dogs, failed to locate any remains, clothing, or personal items. If he had drowned, his body should have surfaced or been found along the banks. Yet nothing was ever recovered. The area where Brandon was last believed to be walking is filled with deep ditches, steep embankments, and hidden hazards. One possibility is that he fell into an open well, sinkhole, or collapsed structure, making recovery nearly impossible. Searchers explored numerous locations, but the vast, rugged landscape makes it difficult to rule out every possibility. Some speculate that Brandon may have encountered another person, perhaps a passerby or an unknown individual lurking in the remote countryside. Was there someone else out there that night? A driver on a back road? A stranger who wasn't supposed to be there? This theory suggests that Brandon might have unknowingly crossed paths with the wrong person, leading to a sudden, violent confrontation. His abrupt exclamation, "Oh, shit," could indicate shock, fear, or an immediate realization of danger. If foul play was involved, it's possible that someone moved his body, erased evidence, or concealed what really happened. Another theory is that Brandon may have become disoriented while walking. Even though he confidently described his surroundings to his parents, he may have been in a completely different location than he thought. The dark, open farmland can be deceptively uniform, with no obvious landmarks, making it easy for someone to become lost, especially if he was unknowingly walking in circles. If he wandered too far in the wrong direction, he could have succumbed to hypothermia, exhaustion, or an unseen hazard before ever reaching safety. More than a decade has passed, but Brandon Swanson has never been found. No remains, no belongings, no definitive clues. His parents continue to search for answers, but the lack of evidence leaves only speculation. Whatever happened that night, whether an accident, a tragic misstep, or something more sinister, one thing remains certain. Brandon Swanson disappeared into the night, and no one knows why. Brandon Swanson was never found. No footprints leading away from his abandoned car, no clothing, no phone, just an empty road and a final chilling exclamation before silence swallowed him whole. To this day, his parents continue to search for answers, hoping that someday someone will uncover the truth. But the fields of Minnesota remain quiet, holding their secrets close. Was it an accident, a fatal misstep, or something far more sinister lurking in the darkness that night? The only certainty is this: Brandon Swanson walked into the night and was never seen again.